to Biblical Psychology, the channel that combines psychological ideas with scripture to help you respond more effectively to the promises contained in the Bible with regards to mental health. And if this is the first time that you're joining us, please do take a look at our other episodes, including the first one, which describes the vision behind the channel. So today we're going to take a look at suicidal ideation, and this is defined as thinking about suicide or wanting to take one's own life. Now, it's a sad state of affairs when someone who adopts a biblical worldview or is a Christian gets to a place where they feel that their life is not worth living. And this tends to happen when an individual is confronted with a set of circumstances which makes them feel hopeless, and they feel that they can't find a way out. Now, interestingly, research does show that people of faith are protected from suicidal ideation because of their faith. And in a moment, I'm going to present to you 3 examples of people in the Bible who were protected against suicidal ideation because of their faith. And the reason for this is because the God in which they believe in, God the Creator, had helped them to see the bigger picture of their circumstances, and that it wasn't just limited to the hopeless situation in which they found themselves. So the first example is taken from Genesis 27 verse 48 through to Genesis 28 1 and 2. And Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am very weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me?" Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to the Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a wife from there of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." So in that story, we see that Rebekah became quite suicidal at the prospect of her son Jacob marrying someone, as she described, from the daughters of Heth, which would have been someone outside of her own community. And she must have been worried about the implications that this would have for her, where it would perhaps compromise the way in which her son would adhere to cultural norms, beliefs, and traditions. So I'm going to take you to another example, which is taken from 1 Kings 19, 4 to 16. And this is a story about the prophet Elijah, who was living in an era when there was a push for everyone to worship an idol god by the name of Baal. And those who refused to worship Baal were killed. And in fact, Elijah was aware that many of the prophets were killed, and he himself was a prophet, and he feared for his own life. So we're going to start at the story where he presents his emotional reaction to this situation. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he prayed that he might die, and said, "It is enough now, Lord, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers." Then as he lay and slept under a broom tree, suddenly an angel touched him, and said to him, "Arise and eat." Then he looked, and there by his head was a cake baked on coals, and a jar of water. So he ate and lay down again, and the angel of the Lord came back the second time, and touched him, and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." And he went in the strength of the food 40 days and 40 nights, as far as Horeb, the mountains of the Lord. Then he said, "Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, and after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. Suddenly a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I am very zealous for the Lord of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life." Then the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive, anoint Hazael to be king over Israel, and Jehu, the son of Nimshi, you shall anoint to be a prophet instead of you. And it shall come to pass that him that escapes the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapes from the sword of Jehu Elisha slay. Yet I have reserved 7,000 of Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal." So in summary, we see that Elijah became quite suicidal because he believed that he was going to be killed because he refused to bow to Baal. And he prayed, and it seems that God answered his prayers immediately, because an angel was sent that gave him food and took him to the place where he could actually communicate to God. And when he met God, God gave him further instruction on what he was to do. And just finally, just taking you to Job 3:11, 20 to 22. This is a story of a man called Job, and if you're interested, you can read it in the chapter of Job in the Bible, where he lost all his possessions, his family, and his health. And I'm just going to read you a portion of scripture that describes his emotional reaction to his situation. So he says, "Why did I die? Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter soul, who longs for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures?" So if you read the full account of this story, you will learn that Job maintained an attitude of gratitude to God in spite of losing everything in life. And one attitude that Job has was that the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And his belief in God sustained him to the point that he was granted everything that he had lost. he was granted actually twice as much as he had lost. His health was restored, and his family also was restored to him. And you can read all about that in Job 42. So in summary, just to say that suicide is never the answer. If you're a person that adopts a biblical worldview to life, you will see from Scripture that you needn't focus on the events in the moment, because there is a bigger picture from God's perspective that you should allow yourself to appreciate. Similarly, as a psychologist, when I was doing my training, we were always taught that suicide is never the solution. We were trained as practitioners that if ever we were having to deal with someone with suicidal ideation, we should support the facilitation of getting them back to a place of hopefulness, because the circumstances for the moment won't last forever. There is a bigger picture. And if you're someone today watching this episode and you do experience suicidal ideation, my encouragement to you is hang on in there, seek support from someone, call emergency services. But the important thing is for you to get to a place of safety, because whatever you're dealing with now is just for the moment. It's not for the rest of your life. So that's all I'm going to be sharing with you today on suicidal ideation. I hope you can tune in with us next time when we'll be looking at substance misuse. And don't forget to subscribe, because that way you'll be notified of all our episodes coming up.